Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today. As you guys probably know, I'm Lucas Alvarez. I'm here with Meg Link, and together we're going to host May's AIGA Atlanta Insider. We're both on the in-house committee here in Atlanta. Currently work for G&A, sustainability consultant, helping companies navigate their way to sustainability, infographics, reports, and that nature. Meg?
Well, hi, and I am a freelance designer and I've worked in-house for many years. So excited for today's presentation.
Awesome. Yeah. So we have a great interview today. Today we're going to be interviewing Evelyn Overall. She is a multidisciplinary designer with 10 years of industry experience. She's passionate about making sense of complicated problems and figuring out simple solutions. Currently, she's a senior visual designer at Pandora SiriusXM, where she combines her love of music, technology, and advertising to help her brands build interactive digital experiences that entertain and produce results. And before we dig into the conversation with Evelyn, we want to thank everyone here and at AIGA Atlanta In-House Committee. We're small but mighty. If you work in-house or even have a vested interest in in-house and want to get involved, please feel free to reach out to me. We'll shoot the email in the chat later. I'm currently the chair of the board, and I'll be happy to help or get you involved in any way you'd like. So we'll shoot you that email, and you can also check out our information at atlanta.aiga.com. And now I'm going to hand it over to Amy for the Market Minute.
Hi guys, Amy Mangan with TCG, the creative group. Excited to share the May Market Minute. So some news in Atlanta. We are moving to the next slide. There we go. So the fintech company Greenlight Financial has actually raised $260 million and said that they're planning to hire 300 people in the coming months here in Atlanta. A lot of those jobs will be creative marketing digital roles. So definitely put a Google Alerts reminder on their careers page so you can see when new things are popping up there, and definitely keep your eyes peeled for roles for that company. And then also great news with SCAD. I know many people on the call are probably SCAD grads. You'll be happy to hear that they're actually expanding their Midtown Atlanta campus. And I love that because it just further drives great creative talent into our market here locally. So love to see it. On a national level, on the next slide, on the left, you'll see the most recent creative and marketing unemployment rates nationally. And I do want to point out that you'll see marketing manager specialists right around 3%, which we consider in recruiting. Usually they say around 4% is full employment. So we're actually below that, which means there's no people available. And then web and digital on a national level is 5.3%. So just above that. I would say in Atlanta, we're experiencing numbers closer to 3%. There are not a lot of designers available right now. So if you are a designer and you are looking, please reach out because we have jobs and we would love to connect with you. On the right side, 3 in 10 in-house creative and marketing managers are reporting being understaffed. That's a bit of a symptom of kind of two things. One, some places cut way too close to the bone due to the pandemic. And now that they're busy again, they haven't had the opportunity to rehire. And then the unemployment rates are so low, so it's very tough to rehire. So we're seeing this sort of laggy, weird thing where people have the work now, the budgets are coming through, but they can't find the people. And at the very bottom, you'll just see a couple numbers pasted. That's from that Career Builder supply and demand tool that I've shared with you in the past. I pulled the newest numbers. So for the past 3 months, only 266 candidates have either updated resumes or applied to jobs on Career Builder with the title graphic design. And over 700 jobs have been posted in that same time. So it really shows you that there's a big disparity between openings and available people who are really out there looking for roles. On the next slide, Robert Half has done a lot of research recently about returning to the office and what that looks like for people. And there are a lot of emotions tied to this. I've seen some funny memes going around, like April 2020 working from home, this stinks. April 2021 working from home, I will quit my job if I have to go back to the office, right? So a lot of people have grown very accustomed to our new setup and they're loving it and they don't miss that Atlanta traffic. I know I'm one of those people. Most folks, though, are saying they would prefer some kind of hybrid situation where they're in the office some of the time and working remotely some of the time as well. Although 1 in 3 people are saying that they will actually quit their job if they have to go back to work, much like that meme. So definitely want to be putting that on your radar. There's more to this research. If you want the full report, just reach out to me. It's a free resource to anyone who needs it. And then on the next and last slide for me, Gartner has put out a CMO priorities report recently, which I thought was interesting. It's a deep, in-depth report and could be some great info for you, but I just wanted to pull this one particular bit out from it. This kind of shows you a little bit behind the curtain of how CMOs in your in-house teams are prioritizing projects. So they came and basically said that of all the options, these were the top 5 things that played into their decision-making factor of how they're prioritizing what's then kind of rolling out to the creative teams, marketing teams, et cetera. So growth, obviously they're risk averse, but they're aware that the market has shifted. And so that's high priorities to create growth for the company. They're trying to be strategic about where they're prioritizing efforts. Obviously, budgets are still a concern in some cases. And so just really accepting the realities surrounding what those budgets look like, or maybe they have reinvigorated budgets. And so they're trying to make sure that they're prioritizing projects in a good way there. But second to that would be upgrading skills. So a lot of times now teams have holes in terms of either creative or marketing, or maybe there's video skills that are missing on a team. We're seeing that a lot now, and really trying to identify those gaps and then making smart decisions about how to prioritize projects, about what they can actually get done in-house, and then what they might need to tap into partner resources to also ensure that they're getting those done as well. And then lastly, an issue that was top of mind for CMOs and prioritizing projects was just dealing with societal change and making a commitment to, changing things that need to be changed. So I thought that would be an interesting peek behind the curtain. Again, if you want to link to that full report, it's not our report, it's a Gartner thing, but I'm happy to share that with you. My contact info is on the next slide, but I'm on LinkedIn as Amy Mangan. So feel free to connect with me and I can certainly get you any additional info that you might need. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lucas.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Always helpful and great to hear about the job situation right now. Seems like everything is going in a really positive direction, especially for designers. And I can tell you, I love working from home too, so that's not going to change anytime soon. So without further ado, Evelyn, why don't you join us?
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today. So happy to have you here. It was really great getting to know you a little bit more in our prep for the webinar. So I'm excited to talk today about work-life balance and finding that job that fits you. So that was a perfect segue from Amy there. And basically what you told me, Pandora is like the real deal. You love it there, but you didn't always have that job. And when you first entered the workforce, you talked about some hardships that you went through trying to find work. I think that's a common thing for a lot of people. Anyone entering the workforce, even through a pandemic or recession, there's always going to be a difficulty with that. And with that being said, I would like to know a little bit more about how you adapted to your situation and ultimately led to your dream job there at Pandora. So when you graduated, what was the job market like?
Yeah, so I graduated smack dab in the middle of the recession, which was a weird time. At the same time, publishing was sort of collapsing a little bit. So it was at a point where there were very few entry-level jobs, and those entry-level jobs that were available were often staffed by people who had significantly more experience than me. So my first role out of school was working in an art gallery, and then taking a bunch of freelance work, just really sort of scraping by until I eventually ended up in my corporate job.
Yeah, I can see that. That's probably, especially during recession, kind of common thing to try to figure out how to fit your skill sets into the job market itself. But even with that said, did you have any kind of idea of what you wanted to do when you got out? Because a lot of the time I feel, especially when you're going through school, you're learning a lot of broad skills and you don't know exactly where you want to apply it. Some people do, some people don't. So how was that for you?
Yeah, for me, I wasn't really sure. I came out of college with that general idea that I was going to be designing 360-degree advertising campaigns, and quickly sort of realized, like, maybe I'm not going to pentagram in the middle of a recession. I knew that I loved brand work and I loved advertising. So I tried to really sort of level into that niche. So that was it. I knew what I liked. But I was also really open to various fields of design.
So I understand that. So like when you were at the art gallery, were you also doing freelance during that time? Okay, so you're doing freelance, yeah. How did you find some of your jobs that way?
So I had word of mouth. So I pretty much talked to absolutely anyone in my network. I also worked with the creative group. Creative group actually helped me get my first 9-to-5 job, which made it so that I didn't have to freelance as much. And it was nice to have that bit of stability.
Definitely. So I mean, obviously you faced some challenges finding jobs yourself, but you eventually did. Was there any examples of like some constructive critique that you had that helped you grow through the creative group or even through some of those freelance jobs?
Yeah, I think when you come out of college, you have a certain level of skill. And I mean, I was really lucky with my education at SCAD. I thought I came out pretty lucky.
Yeah.
But I definitely learned so many different ways to work more efficiently. I definitely learned how to be better prepared for working in-house or working in an agency. And a lot of it was observations from other people I had freelanced with. Because sometimes when you're freelancing, and especially if you're working temp jobs, every day is your first day. So the most important thing is to come in there and be able to pick up good working habits from people who are significantly more experienced with you, which I cannot thank the people I worked with early in my career enough, because it's been so incredibly helpful for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's challenging enough to, especially when you first get out of school, to just jump into the workforce and then have to do and balance all of that as a freelancer and doing like a full-time job, like at the gallery, like you were doing. And one of the challenges I think a lot of people face is trying to figure out how much to charge, and they forget all the additional things that you have to do as a freelancer. Like it's not just the design, you have to become the account manager yourself, the project manager. So balancing that, I'm sure, did you experience any burnout, or did it just continue to help you grow and push you to get into the next job?
Yeah, I was woefully uninformed of how the freelance business worked. I was definitely not charging enough money. I think at that time, people were less transparent about how money works on these campaigns. I think a lot of people feel guilty for charging what they do. I definitely felt that when I was early on. What was really great about the creative group when it was actually coming for me to do my first offer, is that Lauren, who I think just joined back with the creative group, looked at my portfolio, looked at my experience, and she was like, well, what is your range? And I think I gave something ridiculously low. And to her point, she said, well, I don't think that that's, oh, hi, Lauren. She's here. Well, thank you. Thank you for helping me not undermarket myself. That's something that I've carried through for like the next 10 years. It's been so incredibly helpful. And honestly, it's something that I'm cognizant of when we hire, is that we're giving people what they're actually worth.
That's really great. Yeah, it's tough, to push yourself out there like that, but you talking to people, like you just said, asking, getting the answers to the questions, you're not alone out here. There's so many resources, and it's really important to activate those, especially if you feel like you don't know exactly where you want to go. So just a quick question too, is there any advice that you would give recent grads entering the workforce, besides obviously contacting people like TCG and something of that nature?
Yeah. I think understanding that when you go into interviewing, people actually want you to succeed. I think it's really easy to forget that. And it's something that I didn't realize until I started partaking in hiring people, is that I really, like, sitting there from on the other side of it, I really want that person to succeed. I want that person to be the right fit. And I think it's really easy to want to answer every question perfectly in an interview. I think that it's also really natural to want to have the most perfect portfolio. And I think that that's okay, but I also think that there's a really important facet that is, you are uniquely you. Like, you are the only person that can impart everything you have, and you don't have to give the most perfect answers. You don't have to be the perfect candidate.
That's really good. Yeah. It's just be yourself, like be a little more natural in it. Share your trials and tribulations too. I feel like that's another thing people try to hide maybe sometimes too. And it's like, this helped me grow. That's why I understand this more. Being able to share that, that's really good. Awesome. So you worked at R.R. Donnelley next after the art gallery. And so that's where you probably got a lot of your constructive criticism, or learning a little bit more of the ropes once you got in there. Can you talk a little bit about that, John?
Yeah, so I started at R.R. Donnelley when they were transitioning from, there was a previous agency of record at the client, which was Home Depot. And my team, or people who were hired around that time, were moving into that signage contract. So for me, it was an interesting time to come in as a totally new employee who was pretty green in terms of design. So it was interesting. A lot of the people that I worked with had significantly more experience than me. I got really lucky in that I was thrust into this agency environment with people who had decades of experience, specifically in print, which I wasn't. I had like a rudimentary knowledge of, and people were so willing to share. Especially we worked in this like totally open office space. So what would happen is, if you were doing something like ever so slightly wrong in Photoshop, someone would be like, hey, did you know you can do that faster? Which really helped me out, because I learned so much by people who were willing to give that time to me.
That's really good. That goes back to what you were just saying. Like, people want you to succeed. They're not hiring you. They're looking for somebody. If you share that interest in learning too, and your ability to adapt in situations, obviously you have to be qualified. But like, there's so many things that you when you get in a job that are just the nature of the job that you don't know until you're in there. And like, having that somebody there to help you like that. Feel free to reach out too. Like, you don't have to be stuck. Like, I have to figure this out. They hired me to only do that. That communication actually goes, I think, a long way, as you just described. So that's That's really awesome. But as you move through, so everyone's journey is different, and it's common at one point or another to experience like kind of feeling stuck in the role. So you got your first job, and that was working for you, but it wasn't exactly what maybe you wanted. You were learning from it, but you still felt you wanted to move forward. You know, depending on what the job offer is, maybe you're just comfortable, whatever it is. Everyone can feel stuck at one point, and there's a clear sign to make a change at that point. So let's talk about your pivoting in careers, and finding eventually Pandora. So what initially like made you shift from the print at R.R. Donnelley?
Yeah, so I think I was at R.R. Donnelley for a couple of years, and I ended up getting recruited for the Home Depot's in-house marketing team, working mostly in print. And I spent a few years in that job, and I kept wondering what I was supposed to do next. I think sometimes it's hard, even if you really love your job, occasionally you'll get to a point where you realize that you've outgrown it. Yeah. And I think that's probably, I'm sure that's something that a lot of people on this call have probably experienced. Sometime at some point you feel like, I've maybe learned everything I've done every possible stretch project I can do. I've been as productive as possible to try to find new ways to challenge myself, and I'm not really finding that. And I think that it's totally okay to stay there. It's fine to be comfortable. I think we acknowledge that. I think I don't know. I think it's really hard to say like, oh, I always want to grow. I want to be the biggest and the best and all of that. And I think it's also totally fine to say, hey, I want to take a breather and I want to have a healthy life and not stress myself out by learning new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But I had gotten to this point where I had been in a job that I really liked for a long time. I also kept finding that I was loving the digital work I was doing more. When I came onto the team, we didn't really have a social media presence, which was kind of cool. So we got to this point where there was, hey, do you want to make all of the skins for social media for this event? Or, hey, do you want to make stuff for HomeDepot.com, or do you want to try online advertising? And I found that I really sort of leaned into those opportunities because I thought that they were really fun, and they were things that maybe I hadn't had exposure to before. So then I started to think about what I wanted my next move to be. I was lucky in that previous role where I had the freedom to try new things, especially when you're working with a pretty large marketing team. It's people are a little territorial. So I got lucky in that aspect that people were willing to share. But that was when I pivoted most of my work to digital work, and sort of did less and less print work while still being on the print team.
Yeah, that's that work-life balance that you're talking about, like becoming comfortable is certainly okay. Like, you know, you want to find something that fits you, of course. Everybody is looking not just to work their whole entire life, but you also, that feeling of like, I want to do more. That was a great point about identifying like a new skill at your job where you could activate and learn a little bit more about the digital work and advance R.R. Donnelley in that way, and yourself. And so like, I would definitely recommend too, if you're feeling like that at your job, to try and identify new niches for you at your job. If you feel comfortable enough and it has all those benefits, that seemed to be what helped you continue the longevity of the job there. And on the expanding the skills, so like you were given the opportunity to do the social, how did you expand your skills if you were working in print and then they told you now you're going to do all this? What was your path to expanding your skills?
So for me, I think it was because I had made that leap from being a Art Donnelly employee to being a official Home Depot employee that allowed me to sit inside of the advertising team.
Yeah.
And that opened up the ability for me to be in the same room or on the same floor as all of these other avenues in our marketing experience. So that meant that I could ask for these things, and it was easier. I think that was the biggest thing, was getting most of my work done, and then realizing that I could ask for additional stretch projects. Like, I didn't realize that that was something I could do. I think I thought that we were so siloed that it was impossible to jump from one to the other, especially when you're in this like behemoth marketing machine.
Yeah.
And I think that was a treat. That was a total gift. And I'm glad that I got that opportunity, because it made it so that I could do that pivot. And then also have the room to like continue growing and contributing and being steady in the same time.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it kind of was organic. You're like a little bit more organic. So there wasn't anything in you that was like, I don't like what I'm doing and I need to find, and I'll go do research and find this. It was kind of like, here's some avenues and I'm going to activate these avenues because they're new and different. And you found out that you like love doing digital, something like that.
I would say I did a lot of experimenting.
All right, let's hear
Yeah. So I I think maybe in like 2016, 2017, I was like, well, maybe I want to do user experience design. Maybe I want to do product management. Maybe I want to be project manager. So I went and sort of asked around, and talked to people and figured out what their day-to-day life was like. I knew I loved advertising, and I realized I ultimately wanted to stay in it. And I knew from doing the digital work that I had done that I loved it. And I thought, okay, well, I like digital advertising, but I don't think I necessarily want to work on one brand. But I also don't know if I necessarily want to go back to agency life. So I wasn't sure where to go, and I sort of realized like, oh yeah, like maybe what needs to happen is that I take a little bit of a leap of faith and go outside of my comfy company.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think identifying what you want versus what you have can be really challenging when you're in it too, specifically. It's like, getting paid, it's fine, it's working, not being pushed super hard, but I don't want to risk what I have. But I think it's a really important question to ask yourself, and what you just explained, kind of experiment a little bit and pushing your bounds, because you don't know what else is out there until you push those bounds, and it can lead to new job after new job. So that's really important. Did you go through any burnout specifically during any of these jobs that you combated in certain ways? Was there any way that you combated burnout?
Yeah, I don't think I burnt out all the way, but I definitely felt stuck.
Yeah.
I think when I first started working, I wanted to be like the first person in and the last person out. I wanted to be the busiest. I wanted to be perceived as being the most hardworking, and I carried that throughout years of my career, which was fine. I think having a strong work ethic is great, but I also found that I was feeling the effects of it. For me, in terms of recharging, it's about establishing firmer boundaries at work.
Yeah.
And also sort of setting time for myself. The other thing that's been really helpful is finding hobbies that are not related to me making money in any way, shape, or form, and sort of letting myself be purposefully bad at things.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Having your own outside of your job hobby. I personally too, that was one of the things that definitely resonated with me about your story. Like that was so important. It lets you explore in a way like you're in school again. Like you're like, it's all for me. It's not about money. So could you talk a little bit about your hobbies and some ways that you explore?
Yeah. So I set a New Year's resolution a few years ago to explore surface and pattern design, which I think was the first New Year's resolution I actually stuck with. So I would sort of like sit on the couch every night and make new surface pattern designs or experiment with different colors. Now I'm getting into collage, which is really fun. I think since all of my work is on screen, it's nice to do things with my hands, especially coming from when I worked at Donnelly, I was working in signage. So I spent so much of my time making itty bitty teeny tiny mock-ups of things, which I love. And to be honest, deeply miss that sort of hands-on work. So doing collage is like a really fun experiment with that. But I think a lot of it is just finding the time to do with it. I struggle with that right now. I'm sure I will probably always struggle with that, but I find that when I'm feeling burnt out, the best thing I can do is actually spend time doing things that don't make money.
It is kind of a paradox where it's like you need to do more when you're burnt out, but it needs to be for you. It's kind of a different direction. Yeah, being able to explore that creativity that just brings it back, brings that feeling of excitement back for sure, and probably can apply back to your job in multiple ways. Have you used any of your crafting in your digital marketing? I'm just curious about that.
Maybe all the time. So we get a lot of things that are called pre-sales, and it'll be like a response to a request for proposal, and it'll be X brand wants to advertise on us and they're not really sure what they want to do with it, but maybe something involving rich media. And my favorite thing is sort of like cobbling all of these different ideas together to make something, which is essentially collage.
Yeah.
But it's also a really great spot to sort of lean into wackier ideas or lean into interesting executions, because someone isn't buying one specific unit of something. Yeah. They're buying like the promise or idea of something different, which is always fun to me, because I wholeheartedly think like if you're going to execute on something or if you're going to make something, you should like 100% do it and lean into it, which I think is just like the best reward in this job, is just making weird things and being exploratory about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's not a luxury all designers get, for sure. There's so many times you get like a brief and it's specific, but it does go back to what you're talking about too. We're like pushing the bounds of that too. You take your hobbies or what you like to do and figure out ways to weave it into what you're doing. So like bring that in there and makes it better. It just makes the work better in general. So that's really awesome. Highly recommend finding some hobbies for sure to enlighten your creativity.
Yeah, and definitely not feeling guilty about it. I think that's the worst thing, is you can sort of make yourself feel guilty about wanting to undertake a hobby, or you should be doing something different. And the reality is like those things nurture you. Those things keep you working. And it's as important as anything else.
For sure.
Well, I have a fun question from Courtney. She wants to know, what advice do you have for your younger self?
Ooh, don't work so hard.
Good one.
Good one.
That's advice for now too, by the way.
Stop working so hard. Oh my goodness, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
That's funny. Like going back to like the guilty feeling too. Sometimes when you're enjoying your job so much, you can feel a little bit guilty when you find something like that. When you bring in your hobby or you bring in these things that make the work better, you might think it's just fun, and you're like, am I supposed to be doing this right now? I'm supposed to be doing work. I don't know. I've had that feeling before, like creating illustrations for brands or logos, and I'm just drawing things out and sketching and having fun, and I'm just like, oh, I forgot this is work. It just helps to make the idea of work-life balance kind of blend a little bit better together. Awesome. So on the happy medium, let's jump into, it's funny how like when you're working, it's not necessarily about the work, but it's also about the people that you're working with. And that's a big factor that I think a lot of people don't necessarily leave out, but they look at brands and say, I want to work there. And it's more about the brand and that vision, but there's people on the ground that are doing that work. And that's a really important aspect. So I'd love to explore a little bit more about how you identify what was a good fit for you, and talk about Pandora just for a little bit, and what makes Pandora have some of those qualities.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of it is, I think it's really easy to gravitate to certain companies because they have a certain cachet.
Right.
I think that there will always be like the big sexy company that you want to work for, like the dream company. But the thing is that sometimes the view from the inside can be totally different than what you would expect. I think if anyone has sort of explored around Atlanta, like there are lots of companies and not all of them are really lovely to work at from the inside. Yeah. What was really important to me when I decided to leave Home Depot was to find a place that had a healthy work-life balance, where I felt like the people I was working with were excited about what they were doing, where people had definitely like a healthy relationship with work. I knew that those were things that were really important to me, especially as I get older. I knew that my intent was to make more time for my life outside of work. So I knew that, the other thing is, if you tell your parents that you want to leave a Fortune 25 company, they're not going to be happy. Which is to be said of anyone who's like left, like Carter's or like UPS or Coke or like any of those, or Turner, like any of those bigger companies in Atlanta. Your parents will immediately go, but are you sure? And it was really, like, earnestly, it was really scary to leave. At the point that I left, I think I was there for almost 7 years, and I was leaving a team that I loved with people that honestly I had developed lifelong friendships with, who quite frankly were at my wedding. Like, that's the hard part, is you're leaving people that you love and you see every single day. So when I was interviewing, it was really important to me to feel like I was excited about the product I was working on, but also to be excited about the place that I would occupy inside of that team, so that all of the touch points throughout my day would be conducive to the life I want to live. Which was hard. But when I started interviewing, one of the places I had interviewed was Pandora, and I talked to my hiring manager, and he was incredibly interesting and nice, and had a family and had interests outside of work, and was passionate about what he did. And then I met the other members of my team via Zoom. That's a whole different story. And I loved everyone's enthusiasm for their work. I loved how creative everyone was. And I knew that if I did get selected, that it was a place that would be healthy for me. And I am really lucky because I started the job and that was the case.
Yes, that's really, I mean, doing that background, like you're just talking about, meeting them, it's going to be hard to fake that for a long time. So once you get that background, that's a really important aspect when you're especially leaving a comfortable, good job. But you know, it's also important to take that leap of faith if you're feeling the way you felt. And that's an important thing to realize inside yourself. Time to make a change. And this looks like a fantastic spot. So what inspires you about your coworkers right now?
Everyone has their own thing that they're really interested in. Everyone is like, just so many strange and interesting hobbies. I love, I don't know, I bought a pizza oven a couple weeks ago, which is now my favorite thing. And I shared like a photo of it in my work Slack, and immediately like a whole bunch of people were in love with pizza as well. Like I don't know, I love that there's this enthusiasm about making things, about trying new things, and being creative. I really love that.
Awesome. Yeah. That's how you stay inspired with your coworkers, is they're giving you new things and you're sharing new things, and it just keeps building on top of each other. Really important to find that for yourself. And if you're not getting that, that's a clear sign to make a change, even if it's comfortable, for sure. So obviously we had the pandemic last year. You weren't able to go in and do all the typical things at the office. So like, how did you guys keep up during that time? Was there anything that you guys did special, or?
Yeah, I think we had the same sort of thing that a lot of people did, where at first we tried a bunch of happy hours and those didn't work. There's really only so many happy hours you can attend. I know that one of our copy managers put together this like amazing virtual offsite where you could sign up for activities. So we had like smaller clusters where there was like a cooking class with all of your coworkers, or like a sip and stroke class, or one of my coworkers did palm reading. But the idea of sort of like sharing stuff with each other, even though we're not together, has been really helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. It gives you a chance to explore hobby. I mean, it sounds like you got to explore a little bit of hobbies too involved with your job, which again comes back to the creativity for sure. So you kind of touched on that. I wanted to ask a little bit about the extracurriculars, because your company offers some special ones. Could you dive a little bit more into that?
Yeah, we have, so we have, I guess they're called PERGs. They're like little clubs. But we also have ones that are company sponsored. So there's Pride, Mixtape, and Women's. And those are like company affinity groups. And then in addition to that, we have maybe hundreds of different clubs that get a certain amount of money from the company every year. So there's like baking and Spanish and fiber arts, and there's a beer club. There's a club for everything. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do a whole lot of those things lately, but I did join a new one, which was True Crime Podcast. So I'm very excited to get that club going.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. That's another like perk for a job that you don't necessarily look for right away, is like how is the outside of work environment go? Like how do you bond with your coworkers? And you have a smaller team, right? You work in Atlanta specifically. So are you planning on going back after the pandemic, or doing a balance? How is that going to go?
I don't really know. I know that we will probably be going back at some point, but I think at this point our company is figuring out what a soft open would look like. I don't think it's going to be a situation where everyone is at the office every single day. I think it's probably going to be some kind of mix.
Yeah, that's a good sustainability practice moving forward for sure. The opportunity, again, going back to finding avenues, letting the employees have a little bit more flexibility is a great thing for the future. So when now at Pandora, you're specifically working on like advertising, right? And creating. So can you talk a little bit about what you do on day to day?
Yeah. So in short, I help brands advertise on Pandora. So a lot of that is banner ads. Some of that is like micro video games, which is pretty fun.
Ooh.
My team also is huge into audio. So we have a massive team of audio producers who create really, really cool audio ads. We have a bunch of copywriters who write those amazing audio ads. We even have we have creative directors. We have a sonic strategy director, which is really cool.
Awesome.
So we have this agency that lives inside of Pandora that can do pretty much anything. And it's really fun.
That's super cool. Yeah, and a company the size of your company with all these different components, obviously you guys are close with your team. How do you guys connect with your other teams inside of the company?
So part of pre-pandemic time, a lot of that connection would happen through projects that we have that overlap organically. Mm-hmm. Also, our clubs and perks are a really great way where people would interact with each other during the workday. So I was really big into knitting and crocheting, and most of the people that were in that club with me were engineers. So having those sorts of things exist in your workplace allows you to explore other avenues for your own work, to really learn what's happening within the company, which is really great. And I think it helps us be more creative, be more innovative, because we're not sort of as siloed as a lot of other people are.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, connecting the dots organically, through just doing after activities and the job itself. Like, oh, we have that person. That's such a great opportunity, or facilitating for you to be able to work with all these different types of jobs for sure. So I guess we're getting closer to the end here. So do we have any questions, Meg? I have some fun questions that we can get into, but.
Well, I'll do one question from Amy first. So she wants to know, can you tell us a little bit about your favorite project at Pandora?
Oh, I've had some weird ones. I've had some really fun ones, but I've had some weird ones too. One I did recently, or one I worked on recently, was for Dove, and it was a sound escape. So Dove came out with a new body wash, and instead of having just a standard audio ad, what they did was a immersive sound experience, not a sound bath specifically, but a calm style audio experience that was really the length of a normal shower that you could listen to. So it was cool. Tropical island sounds that went along with the mango body wash, which is kind of silly, but also really, really, really fun to work on, to make display assets for, and really cool to watch the copy team and the audio team work on.
That sounds like a really fun project.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect job. That sounds awesome. I have to find that myself. What were some of the weirder ones? I'm curious too about like how do you, obviously you guys have a lot of creative freedom and be able to push some things. So that's really cool to hear about. So what was one of the stranger ones?
I came up with one recently, which I think is maybe weird, but I thought was really fun, which was it was like I think it was for Oric or Bissell, and it was not Pac-Man, but basically Pac-Man, but instead of Pac-Man, it's a vacuum cleaner, and you are trying to, instead of running over the fruit, you're running over dust bunnies, pet stains,
That's awesome.
and other messes.
That's super creative for sure. All right, I'm gonna throw a fun question out there. Obviously, you work at Pandora, so when you were at the office, I mean, did you see a lot of artists coming through, and how was that?
Weird. Really weird. Yeah, I faced a window, and it would basically, the people who sat on the other side of me would know who was behind me or who was walking around the corner. And it was like, I'd be in my zone, and then all of a sudden be like, hey, is that blah, blah, blah? Yeah, so that was like, honestly, something I really miss was seeing people come into work for totally work related reasons. We have there's an artist relations team that focuses on hip hop in Atlanta, who sat behind us. So it'd be kind of like the strangest thing. Oh my gosh, like there's a famous person.
Yeah, coming into the office, that would be definitely a unique experience. That's not something you do every day.
Like, I'm just sitting here pushing my pixels, and Lil Nas X is here.
Yeah.
What is this?
Looking out the window, turn around slowly. Yeah.
What is this? Yeah, it's weird flex, but very like so strange. Lovely, but strange.
Super cool though. Yeah, I love that. That's definitely a perk of the office. Working with music has got to be fantastic. Do you guys have like an awesome sound system in the office or anything? Like, I'm sure the party times are amazing there.
Yeah, I miss them. Yeah, there's several different speakers around the office, and they all have iPads connected to them and Pandora on them, so you can put your playlist in there and pick what you listen to. So like every different department has their own sort of playlist running, which is nice.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss it.
Other jobs should take note on for sure. I think that'd be a fantastic feature just to be able to play. And a lot of agencies, I think, do have their speaker system set up like that. It's so fun to be able to share music, and I think Pandora's got to be one of the best places to do it for sure. So, all right, I got another interesting question. So, during COVID, what was your favorite like COVID safe activity that you did in Atlanta?
I am basically constantly walking circles around Grant Park.
Nice.
I have a dog, and that is my whole life. Yeah, that's my primary COVID activity. Is I do a whole lot of walking around Atlanta.
Yeah, definitely did a lot more of that as well last year. Going out whenever I can, get some fresh air. Is there any more questions from the chat? I got one more, but I want to save it just in case. Are we looking good?
There are none from the chat, but I have a quick question. So, I mean, I know this is a hard one. What is your favorite music crush right now since you work at Pandora?
Oh, I have so many. Mine right now is this band called Really From. They are part indie, part jazz.
Sounds cool.
What are they called again? Let me get
really from.
that. All right.
They're incredibly cool, and that's my favorite thing of the last like month.
Awesome.
Nice. All right. This is kind of a bigger, broader question, and maybe hard to identify, but like, what is one of the best pieces of advice that you've gotten through your career, through all these different jobs?
Ooh.
I know that's a big one.
Yeah, there's a lot. I had one where I thought that I was told that my contract was going to end, which is scary and also part of being a freelancer. And I was pulled into a room by one of my coworkers that informed me that I like can't control what's going to happen between now and the last day of my employment, but I can control how I react to it. And I felt like that was incredibly helpful, because my immediate gut reaction was, oh no, I'm losing my job. What am I gonna do? And then it turned out that I pulled myself together and continued working and sort of crossing my fingers and applying other places. And it turned out that I ended up being hired as a full-time employee before my last day. So by the sheer fact that I hung in there, it allowed me to carry on, which was really so helpful. And especially when I encounter situations now that seem really stressful, I've realized that I can't control the outcome of it, but I can control how it affects me.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a really important key for sure. Going into job interviews, through your job, through projects, meeting new people, just shifting your mentality about it. That's really great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Evelyn. This has been a fantastic chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. On that note, I think we're going to close it out here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.